So lately my Nissan has been very noisy. Kind of sounds like a semi-truck when you're driving it, and then even at 3,000 to 4,000 RPMs, I'm starting to get belt squeal. Now these things kind of point to a bad fan clutch, so I went ahead and bought one, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to replace the fan clutch. Now the fan clutch is on its own pulley in the front of the motor, and it attaches to the pulley. Then you have your fan clutch, and then the fan attaches to the front of the clutch, and basically all the clutch does is engage the fan when it needs it and does not engage it when it does not need it. So we're going to replace that. There's just a few quick things you need to do to get access to it. You need to take off the front top intake tube, and then there is a kind of skid plate engine bay protector on the bottom that needs to get removed. From there, you need to remove the fan shroud. And then once that's out, we should have enough access to kind of get in there and wiggle that assembly out. So let's get started. Now let's start up top. Now to get to this fan shroud, which is down here, we need to take off this front tube. And to take this off, we need to take off our top engine cover. So you're going to do that by grabbing your 10mm socket and taking off this top piece. Just loosen the top two bolts, and then it'll pop off the back and the front. All right, set that aside, and then we're going to take this piece off. Now that that's off, you have another two 10mm right here. With those out of the way, we just need to loosen the clamps on both sides and take this hose off here. With these loosened, just pull the whole assembly off the throttle body, off of the filter case, and then just up and away from the motor. Now you'll see the top of the fan shroud. So we're good to go on the top. Let's go down below and get that protective cover off. Okay, we are down below, and now we need to take off this big plate right here. Now there should be, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the front. I only have like 3. Someone had removed it and lost the rest of them. And then there is 2 in the rear. So go ahead and just remove those. 2 of the screws for the front plate are underneath these little holes, little access holes. So I just kind of put my hand behind and just push it out, and it'll come out forward for you. There you go. Once those are available, I believe it's just a 10mm again. Let's take a look. Yep, 10mm again. Just take those off and then remove the plate. As you're removing your final screws, make sure that you are supporting the plate with your other hand, as to not to drop it on your face. So here's our final screw. All right, slide it out from the front, and then I'm just going to set it down underneath the car. All right, so the plate is gone. Now the bottom of the fan shroud is connected by these little clips. There's a few on each side. You just want to squeeze those, and the bottom of the fan shroud should come out. There we go. Just kind of let it disconnect there. Once it's disconnected, you can just kind of set it on the oil filter, and then over here on a support on the lower radiator hose. We don't really need to take it all the way out. It's just really out of the way, so when we take the upper fan shroud off, it's not catching on the fan. All right, they're just disconnected. So now that this is disconnected, we're going to go up top and we're going to take off the rest of the fan shroud. Now the upper fan shroud is going to come off with a few different things. You have another 2 bolts here. I'm assuming it's going to be 10mm. There is an electrical connection for the auxiliary fan, which we need to disconnect, and then you just want to take this top overflow hose and just kind of get it out of the way, so when you pull the fan shroud out, you're not putting any undue pressure on that. So we're going to take this out, move that away, take these 2 bolts out, make sure that our auxiliary fan is disconnected, and then we're going to pull the whole assembly out. Now, unfortunately, I did have to take off this top radiator hose. It looks like there's just not enough space to move it to the right and then out. So I just went ahead and loosened this clamp, pushed it back, and then we can get the fan shroud out that way. Okay, in addition to all of that, it looks like we're also going to have to remove our secondary fan. So that should just be 1 bolt at the top here, holding that in. Just take a quick look, make sure everything's out of the way. Kind of tuck everything to the side. Let's see if we can get this to come out now. There we go. Perfect. Here's what everything should look like when you have the assembly pulled out. Just pull it out as 1 unit. This will technically disconnect and come out, but you have some wiring that's attached to it and all that. So these will slide into some little ports on the bottom, and this will pop into another kind of groove that's on the radiator. So just pull this out as 1, and that way you don't have to worry about separating it while it's inside the engine bay. But now that this is out, we should have more than enough access to take off our fan clutch and fan assembly. So let's do that. Now what you're looking at here is the fan clutch. So this shaft here is attached to a pulley, which is what your serpentine belt is attached to. And then somewhere behind here, a little bit over here, is the water pump. Now luckily we have our fan clutch actually runs on its own pulley, and it's not a direct shaft, meaning the water pump and the fan clutch do not share the same pulley. So what that means for us is that we can come in here and we can detach the fan clutch from this pulley without having to do a bunch of crazy work. We don't have to take out the water pump. We don't even have to take off the belt, which is pretty cool. So this again is a 10mm. I just have a wrench, and what we're going to do is just loosen these one by one. All right, and then take them off. Now that all 4 are off, you need to find a way to get this off. Now it's going to be on pretty tight. It looks, it feels pretty solid. So what I'm going to do is just get a long, like a breaker bar or ratchet, put it on this, and then just tap on it a little bit to loosen it up. So I have my breaker bar and a dead blow hammer, just kind of resting it on there, just kind of loosening it up. Now that it's off, I see that we should really remove the belt, because if you see, this little pulley is actually just a housing over top of the shaft, and it's starting to torque. So what we want to do, just to make sure it doesn't pop off, is just push down on your tensioner and remove this belt. There we are. So that way this sits correctly and we don't have to worry about it falling off. Here are the 2 units next to each other. We have the new one over here, and then obviously we have the old one with the fan still on it. Now we're just going to want to remove the fan and put it onto our new fan clutch. It doesn't really have a particular order, just make sure that the fins are pointed the right way, right? We don't want to reverse the airflow. So however you have it here, facing up, unscrew it, just set it over here, screw it back in, and then it'll already be ready to go back into the truck. normally this would be the part where I say, well, the installation is just the reverse of the removal, but we're actually going to do something a little differently. Now, what I wanted to do, or what I should have done when taking it off, is actually loosen that belt first. So what we're going to do is loop the belt back over that pulley, put the fan on first, and then put the belt on the tensioner. So once we do that, then the rest is just the exact opposite of when we removed it. So let's get that done. Now we're going to do things a little bit differently on the installation. Now as you can see, this pulley is loose over top, so when we removed the fan, this kind of put too much pressure on it and it went cockeyed. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the belt loose while we reinstall the fan, and then we're going to put the tensioner back onto the belt to put everything back in place. Now just make sure that your belt is over the proper pulleys and under the proper pulleys, and then just leave it off the tensioner, because what we're going to do is slide it out to the side up here, all right, like that, and then we're going to drop it over the remaining pulley to make it tight. So in the meantime, leave it like that, get one of your nuts ready, slide the fan back into place, get it over those existing bolts, all right, and get one of your nuts on. Okay, so now that that's in place, put the other 3 on, tighten them up, and then we're ready to put the belt back on. Now I only finger tighten them because right now this is just spinning freely. So once we put the tension back on it, by basically tightening your belt, you're going to be able to more easily put some more pressure on those nuts with a wrench. You could hold the fins of the fan and then tighten these nuts here, but you really want to avoid that because you don't want to put any pressure on these fins. You might snap them off depending on how old or brittle the plastic is. So finger tighten, and then now let's put the belt back on, and then we can finish tightening the rest. Now we're ready to put the belt back on so we can create some tension on this pulley. So go ahead and push down on your tensioner, and then basically just wrap the belt over the last remaining pulley. So that's going to be this one down here. So just get it ready and then push down on your tensioner and then put it over that pulley. Once you have it over that last pulley and you have tension back in the belt, just follow the belt with your eyes and make sure it's on each pulley. So for instance, it's not on this one. So we want to loosen it. There we go. Make sure it's in place. It's not perfect on this one down here, so we'll slide that back in. Good. And it's good on that one. All right. So now that your belt's back in place, we have all the tension that we need to torque these nuts back down and put the fan clutch back in into its final resting place. So get your wrench, tighten those down. Now once all of those are tight, now we're at the point where the installation is just the exact reverse of the removal. So that's really it. You have a new fan clutch in your truck, and if you have any questions or comments, certainly put them in the comments below.